Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday morning here on the Going for Two Live Network. My name is Kyle Senra, joined by Jamie Perog and Topher Kurt. How are you both doing? Jamie?
Doing good. Getting ready for week 2 of the NFL.
Awesome. Yeah, here we are, week 2, Sunday morning. Topher?
Amen. I'm excited for today. It's, Sunday. They talk about Sunday scaries. Those don't hit until after Sunday night football when it's football season. Otherwise, normally those hit about 3 p.m. So I'm excited to procrastinate on that as I do everything else in my life.
Hooray. Well, glad you could take enough time off your procrastination to join us here on the Sunday morning stream. We're going to put you to work. We're going to answer a ton of start-sit questions. We had a lot last week, so hoping for another big crew here. So everyone head over to the Going for Two Live YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe, like the video as well, so propagate through the algorithm and we can get more people involved in the conversations. But head on over, ask away any fantasy questions you have, mostly start-sit. Certainly, Jamie and I do a lot of dynasty, so if you have any dynasty trades or just redraft trades, the rare redraft trades that I don't know how many more of those I make anymore once a year. Whereas dynasty trades, it's like once a week. So feel free to head over. We're on the Going for Two Live Twitch page, Going for Two Facebook as well. So over to all those great places, and we can get these conversations going. Did either of you have any topics you wanted to start with before we got to start sitting stuff?
Not that I can think of. Something I do want to point out because it was just released, is that Marshawn Lattimore is out, and obviously you were gonna start CeeDee Lamb anyway. But if you're doing some sports betting over under on yards and stuff, I mean you're gonna want to bet the over with CeeDee Lamb now, I think, because Marshawn is formidable, but I don't think anybody else is on that team is gonna stop CeeDee in that same way.
And then AJ Brown is expected to probably not play tomorrow night. So,
really? Now he's expected to not play.
Correct. Well, I'm expecting him not to play because I don't think he practiced much, and I'm nervous, so I took him out of my lineups and the leagues that I have him.
Well, and that's the one thing I wanted to touch on last week, but we ran out of time because we got so many start-sit questions. But was how do you prepare for McCaffrey, who's questionable on Monday night? Apparently, a lot of people were caught off guard, so we probably should have addressed that because not that it mattered, because like in the leagues where I had McCaffrey, they're deep dynasty leagues, so like Isaac Guerrero and Kyle Juszczyk ended up like. Here's the one thing, like I know, did either of you see Jordan Mason available at all before game 1? Because all the leagues I was in, he was drafted. I didn't see him available anywhere because I know everyone was talking about, he's the big waiver wire darling. But my thinking was, and even in the shallowest of redraft leagues, he was still available. He was not available on week 2 waivers. So for instances like that, it was like Isaac Guerrero and what did I say? I replaced with Kyle Juszczyk, and Guerrero got 0 points, and it cost me dropping Roman Wilson in a 1-year contract salary cap contract league. I know that'll upset Jamie, but the way I was thinking, like, am I going to get anything out of Roman Wilson? Probably not. Let me just prevent the 0 by putting Guerrero in, who still scored 0. So I might as well just get McCaffrey in the lineup. So that didn't work so well. Now
we can always go back and get Wilson because I think he is practicing right now.
And you know what? I don't think he was picked up. So if I really want to, I probably could make that happen. But with AJ Brown, let me see. Okay, great. NFL.com doesn't have an update, and that's the 2 leagues. Okay, I'm gonna check the practice report because I guess with it being a Monday, like they're not as far in on practices as like everyone else is. So like everyone else will have 3 days of practice. They're probably on there. Like today's gonna be their second day or third day of practice. So he was limited Friday. So no injury designation Thursday, and then limited Friday, which means I guess he probably injured his hamstring Friday, and then didn't practice Saturday. So it probably doesn't look great.
No,
he's got such upside that I've got in the 2 leagues where I have him. I went and I picked up Ray McLeod. He seemed like the best option available, and that's what you want to do. Is if you're going to be playing a questionable player Monday, you want to move them to your flex. In theory, if you're playing any Monday night player, they should be in your flex spot every time anyway. Because an injury could happen on a Saturday practice and you're not expecting it. So So in that, even though that's the case, there weren't any running backs that were available. Like, with Monday night, you're dealing with, okay, well, Bijan and Saquon aren't available. Do you trust a Kenny Gainwell or a Will Shipley, or on the other side, a Tyler Algier if they're available? I feel like a lot of those times, especially Algier was drafted, though. So turns out Ray McLeod is the best. So if you've got A.J. Brown, Ray McLeod might be your best option to go pick up. And if in case Brown isn't active Monday, you can do it. But as Jamie said, if you want to be proactive and just take him out of the lineup entirely, go ahead. I think on the teams where I have him, there's enough upside and with McLeod available, I don't necessarily have much better options otherwise.
There's really not any better option available. No.
And like I got Zeke on the bench. So I suppose in theory, like, would I rather play Zeke or Ray McLeod? Probably Zeke, but not enough to where like I'm willing to take the risk. And because if Brown plays, even if he's questionable, I still want him. So that's why I picked up Ray McLeod. So anyone with AJ Brown who still wants the option to play him, Ray McLeod probably gets enough targets that he's not going to get you a 0. We hope. We'll see.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that was one. The other guy is tonight's game. So you've got a few more options with it. It's Keenan Allen. And, 11 targets last week. That type of volume, you'd say, oh, man, if that guy's playing, I definitely want him in the lineup. But 11 yards or 11 targets to get, I think he, like, in full PPR, I think he might have scored 4 points, 5 points. Very inefficient in terms of fantasy points per target. So that's pretty awful. But if you wanted to, I actually think a good option for tonight's game would be DeAndre Carter. If Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze are both out, DeAndre Carter might be the Bears' number 2 wide receiver. So if you're thinking of, okay, what's the replacement for Keenan Allen that I could use? Carter probably works well because if Allen's in, then you definitely don't want to play Carter, but
no,
Keenan Allen, so you want to play him. But if Allen's out, that gives Carter, I think, frontline opportunities to be a starter on this team. So that was one guy I was looking in a league where I had Keenan Allen, like, okay, who's available to replace? I mean, you could just take Ray McLeod again. That's the good old answer of just take Ray McLeod. But
and somebody else that you could think about is crazy deep, but Gerald Everett. He was clearly the number 1 tight end for the Bears over Cole Kmet last week in snaps and in targets and all that fun stuff. Gerald Everett, he's probably out he's got to be out there by so many.
Most people saw him as the backup tight end, so not worth drafting. So yeah.
Let's see, Gerald Everett on Sleeper right now. There's a 40% ownership, which is way higher than I thought it would be. But
the problem with Sleeper, that probably includes a ton of dynasty leagues.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where I feel like a lot of those 40% are going to just be deeper dynasty rosters. So
let me pull it up on Yahoo.
I was going to say, Sleeper. Can't get it right.
I see we got some questions in the chat. We'll get to those in a second here.
Yeah.
So,
I'll pull this up so we can start reading it, and then if you get that info.
Yeah, you go ahead and read and such, and I'll
played James Cook on Thursday, so right off the bat, great start. Might have the RB1 of the week. Even I raised him up in my rankings this week, and I was still too low. I think he only ended up going to like RB8 for me, which was significantly higher than it. Clearly, I didn't even raise him enough. But so wide receivers are Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson. Wow, that's a great three picks to start off, I think. Have Gibbs going today, so then 1 flex player. Full PPR, Rashad White, Drake London, or Tank Dell.
I'll start with this. All good options. I don't think White is going to get many of the carries, but he is involved in the passing. You got that Bucky. I mean, he's going to start taking over soon.
And they have Laporta.
I'm going to go Dell here easily just because I know Jalen Johnson's covering Nico. It's going to be a tough matchup. Yeah, Collins is going to get his targets, but, I mean, Dell's going to be open a lot that game, so I see him getting peppered with targets too. Plus, last week he had the ADOT that was similar to Collins. Diggs had like a very low ADOT, like less than 5 yards, so I'm going to go Dell.
Now, to be fair to Diggs, though, like those were end zone shots where they were like near the goal line, right? So like the ADOT isn't going to be high in those situations because there isn't anywhere to go, but he succeeded in the play, right? I mean, there's, if you're 5 yards away, the most you can gain on any play is only 5 yards. So to defend Diggs a little bit, but Dell ran just as many routes. I think he played less snaps than Collins and Diggs. I was listening to a podcast that was kind of going through it, but they also talked about most of the snaps that Dell didn't play were run plays. So in terms of like route running participation, Dell was up there with Collins and Diggs. And to the point where in my touchdown projections before the season, I was saying Dell was the guy with the most touchdown upside, and Diggs went and slapped that in the face right away. No, it's me. I don't think he's going to get 2 touchdowns every week, clearly. But I think that those types of 2 touchdown performances, those could just as easily go to Tank Dell as they did to Diggs last week. So I think, Dell's worth starting. Man, like for Daniel here, already 3 Lions players. Do you go on the other side of the matchup with White just because this game is, like, I think so far this year, we only have 2 weeks, but is the highest over-under of any game so far this season. I think it was like 51.5. So, I mean, if you're already going to play 3 players from the Lions, unless you think the Lions will blow out the Buccaneers, you're almost invested in this matchup to say, I want this game to be as high scoring as possible, and in which case it probably makes sense to play Deshaun Watson. If you're already going to be playing 3 Lions, you may as well get 1 player from the other side if you think that this is the type of game script to make that happen. Lions' run defense is really good, though, which sucks for White. But I guess the thing that White's not a really good runner. Right? Like his value is in the passing game, which in theory this sets up as a good matchup for that. The Bucs will be chasing. It should like a better game script than it was against Washington, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna lean White as well. I think it's gonna be a shootout. It's gonna be high scoring, high octane. I think. Plus, I'll make today's game really, really fun to watch on both sides of the ball. But I think White. You go White here.
Yeah, I think. Well, none of us said to go Drake London, so at least you have that. I think part of it is just I need to see more from Cousins in terms of like he has to make steps in his recovery because clearly he doesn't seem like he's 100%. I don't know what your guys' take on the situation is, but I'm feeling like Cousins has rushed himself back because they drafted Penix. And he's worried that if Penix even got 1 start, he'd be good enough that Cousins' career in Atlanta is done before it even begins. Yep. So it feels like he probably shouldn't be playing right now, but he is. And the only thing that's going to change is as he recovers properly. But if he's playing football games every week, is that going to help him recover? Once that happens, I assume things will be better for the Atlanta passing game. Maybe we're just waiting for Michael Penix to get in there to have London be viable. So I'm really hesitant to play Drake London until we see either improvement for Cousins or a quarterback change.
Yeah, I will say on Cousins, Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic was on the Call podcast this week. She is every Thursday with Dan Hansis and Mark Sessler, Michael Sean Duggar. And she was saying that they ran 50 of their offensive plays from the pistol formation, and they didn't do a single play action with Bijan or Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, that's what he does. That pistol formation is made to make sure that it's easy for a quarterback to not be so mobile. And that's insane that they had 50 of those in one formation the entire game. They're purposely trying to protect Kirk Cousins here. So
yeah, London going to be, I would say, on the bench side for a lot of this season until again something changes. Cousins, again, assume he will eventually recover, but I mean we're still at 10 months removed from the Achilles. Yeah. I think it happened like late October, so still not even quite at the 10-month. Or yeah, I guess we're past 10 months. We're almost at the 11-month mark, but yeah, it still seems like we might not see a better healthy Cousins until maybe November. I know, shout out to Doc. I don't know if Jamie has the book handy. It's on that bookshelf back there. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. Dr. James Perog, great writer. And I know he's talked about like with Achilles, you're really looking for 12 months. Once you hit that year mark, it's not, and as we've seen, players can come back before then, but their performance isn't optimal. And that's what you're really waiting for. So, it's, I have 0 Drake London shares, so I'm not in the position where I have to make this decision, but it feels like you can't start him until something changes at quarterback, which has been the problem the whole time. We thought, we finally gets better quarterback play, but I mean, not if Cousins is really that hampered by this. Yeah. All right, next question. Yeah, we took a long time on the
I was going to say, let's go.
I do like scramble. So pick one for flex in standard, so non-PPR. James Conner, Aaron Jones, Xavier Worthy, or Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, I'm going to go James Conner here. I got him in my top 10 running backs. It's going to be a high-scoring game, more opportunities to score. I do like Aaron Jones, but he's more down at like the 20th area for me. Worthy, I don't know, man. He had, a huge game, but he only had 3 targets. He had a touchdown and a busted play, and the other one was a designed run. So not much usage there. He is efficient, though. And then, yeah, give me Conner all day.
I will say to the Worthy point, after seeing him be so efficient, though, I have to imagine the Chiefs are going to give him more touches. Like, he's not just going to get 3 targets every game. Like they showed, like, hesitation. He's a rookie. You're not sure going into the week. If an opportunity happens, we'll give him the plays. He goes and scores 2 touchdowns. You got to think this week they're thinking, okay, let's get him more involved. He showed he can handle that. Let's add to his workload. But in non-PPR, it does feel like you want to default to the running backs. What do you think,
Topher? Yeah, I think that James Conner is your best option. Aaron Jones against the 49ers front 7. Even when he was on the Packers, if I had other options, I probably would have trusted that. And Aaron Jones looked electric last week. I loved it. But again, that 49ers defense is just redonkulous. Worthy, he's big hit or miss. I think Likely surprised everyone last week. And you know what? He does face the Raiders, and there's not really a wide receiver 2 there. So I could see, what, as I'm talking about it, I think I'm going to go Likely again. I don't think Andrews is fully back from being in that car accident. I think they're going to take it slow with him because he is such a big asset on the team. And they already know that Likely can do this. Likely has already proved that time and time again. So I'm going to go Likely.
Well, the thing with Andrews, though, he did play more snaps, ran more routes. They just covered him. The Chiefs are awesome at taking away Andrews, and that's why he didn't have such a good game and probably why Likely did.
Yeah, well, I got to shout out this man, Dan the B League says, because he was talking about that all before the season. Like, he was under, like, him. It's more from a prop and yardage perspective, some of the underdog contests. But he was like, lower on Mark Andrews on everything across the board. Yeah. Just because the Chiefs have historically been so good against Andrews. That's not to say, though. I mean, they kind of gave a blueprint, though. Oh, double cover him. So other teams could copy that, but are other teams as good as the Chiefs? Like, I don't think the Raiders secondary is as good as Kansas City is. So the problem, again, I have with this, though, is that it's standard, so non-PPR.
Oh, true.
It's really, like, to me, it's really tough to flex, because if he's asking tight end in a flex, that means he's clearly already got another tight end starting. And I assume if that's a top 8 tight end, then you'd rather have Likely over that person. I am curious, Ryan, who is the tight end you're starting? I think Likely might be worth it. I mean, I've got Likely at tight end 10 this week. I don't know where you have him, Jamie. So to me, there's 9 tight ends that are not worth playing him over. But then, in a 12-team league, the other 3 managers who don't have one of those 9 tight ends, their best option probably is Likely. So
yeah,
I also have him at 10.
You have him at 10 as well?
Yeah, probably around like between 9 and 10 points this week.
So I actually have Aaron Jones higher than James Conner this week, so that would be my answer. You guys are giving good points, though, on why the matchup is better for the Cardinals. And my rankings are half PPR, not standard.
Yeah. So standard does make a difference. I think in standard league, you lean towards the running back. When you've got a coin flip, you lean towards the running back because they're guaranteed more work.
And in an instance like this with 2 running backs, you'd kind of default to who's guaranteed, who's more likely to score a touchdown. And both think
more
Conner,
likely?
Right?
Who's more likely?
Well, yeah, I guess that is funny. But I was specifically talking about between Conner and Jones. And that's why both of them took Conner. Rams defense, not nearly as good as the 49ers defense.
Yeah.
So that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, anyway,
let's go into the next question.
Yeah, Dan's question here. IDP. Frankie Louvu versus the Giants or Kwity Paye versus the Packers. The problem with Kwity Paye is that he was questionable this week, and I remember doing the Packers pod, full press Packers pod, by the way, and I don't think he practiced at all. So even if he plays, he's probably going to be super limited. So easy for me, just based on the practice availability. I think you go Frankie. Sorry that you have to play against your own team, Dan. And maybe I am making this choice to prevent you from playing them against my team, clearly. Yeah, no, I think with Kwity Paye and no DeForest Buckner, it could be really tough for that team to get pressure. Now, do you think they'll get a lot of tackles or not? I don't know how you feel, Topher. I expect the Packers to maybe make a more run-heavy approach this week.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you that I've never played IDP. I don't know much of anything about it. But I'm not gonna even give my input. Just go Pack go.
Jamie, you got anything? Because I know you play enough IDP between Luvu and Kwity Paye.
I don't have my rankings on me for IDP, but I would probably go Luvu. Yeah, versus the Giants.
Yeah,
definitely go Luvu.
I'm doing it just because of the injury stuff. Let me see. So Kwity Paye was limited at Friday's practice, but didn't practice the first 2 days. And DeForest Buckner is also questionable. Didn't practice this week, so maybe because Buckner maybe is less likely to play, they force Paye in just because they don't want to be down 2 starting linemen. But even if he plays, how effective is he? How many snaps is he going to get? So that's my whole thing is I would just chase the injury report and say Frankie Luvu's the healthier guy. Just go with it. Now the problem is I know Jamie, Steve Humgardner well, the IDP hunter. He talked about this too.
His rankings now.
With Luvu going to a new team though with Washington, his role is less tackle heavy than it was in Carolina. So this will also, Dan, the problem with IDP is the scoring settings. There is nothing as standardized. The 1, 2, 3 that's Steve Humgardner tries to popularize and others have as well seems to be the closest thing. So in those formats, you are chasing tackles the most. I don't know that either of these guys get a ton of tackles. So I'll ramble around to say the answer is Luvu just because he's healthy. I think matchup wise, in terms of scoring settings, it's not great for either. But in that instance, just go with the guy that's healthier, right? He's more likely to play more plays, get more opportunities.
Yeah, for any IDP, go to Fantasy Six Pack. Steve Humgardner, he is the number 4 ranker on Fantasy Pros. He's also on the RPO Network. RPO Network has 3 guys in the top 10 for IDP rankings, so check them out too.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Steve's great. And we've got Matthew Morris here saying, "Hey, gentlemen." And
hey, Matt.
The question here. So full PPR, DeAndre Swift versus Houston or Jaleel McLaughlin versus Pittsburgh.
That's tough because I have them back to back. You know me, I'm not a Swift guy. I'm more.
I also have them back to back. RB30 and RB31. So it's.
I think I got them 29 and 30.
All right, there we go. Jamie and I are in step here. So who do you have higher though?
I do have Swift higher by 1 spot.
Same here. So it's super tough. I would say. I don't even know if the matchup's better. I mean, the thing with Swift is that game total is a lot higher. There's just more points expected in that game, so more opportunity. But I mean, Jonathan Taylor did get a touchdown against the Texans, but they also held him in check rushing wise. I think he only had 4, he had less than 50 rushing points. So
yeah,
kind of saved the day with a touchdown.
He's very much held in check. I think McLaughlin has a higher chance to score. I think he will always have a higher chance than Swift to score, in my opinion, just because of the big playability that McLaughlin has. He just, he can just rip one, and Swift is not so much of a big play guy in my mind. I could be very wrong on that, but he's more of a pound and ground sort of guy. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I mean, we're not going to know, but if Odunze and Allen are out, one of the big problems last week was that all the targets essentially went to Keenan Allen and DJ. You talked about Gerald Everett earlier. Pretty sure he had 0 catches, but so did Cole Kmet, which is the point. There was, and I don't think Swift even saw a target. So there was literally 0 catches by non-wide receivers for the Bears last week. But if Keenan Allen's out, that means they may have to go to guys like DeAndre Swift. So I'm thinking just with those guys limited, I think I'd lean that way. The problem is we don't know. We're not going to know, right? So you're going to have to make that decision kind of blind.
Yeah.
There's a reason Jamie and I have them separated by 1 spot. So sorry, Matthew, didn't really give you clarity.
I was just PPR, because he is going to get more of the work, I think, than McLaughlin.
I think it seems like he's not splitting the running back work. Mm-hmm. Now, how much work does the running back get? Last week was also weird. They were down 17-0 almost instantly, so they kind of had to just go to we're not really running the ball. We're just going shotgun, tons of pass attempt mode. I mean, it is the Texans, so you could also see that game script happening and repeating itself. But just again, without, we don't know if Odunze and Allen are going to play or not. If they do play, it maybe does hurt Swift a little bit. But I think right now I would take the shot that at least one of those two is going to miss, if not both, and have Swift maybe get more passing work this week. Because I think McLaughlin saw 5 targets, so that's. I remember if I have time later, I'll show you my start-sit spreadsheet, and one of them was McLaughlin versus Christian Kirk and DK Metcalf. And one of the things, look at McLaughlin got more targets than those guys. And those guys are wide receivers. The team's number 1 wide receivers, and McLaughlin got more targets than them. So he is involved in the passing game, whereas we think Swift should be and will be, but we don't know that. So,
correct.
To Topher's point of McLaughlin might be more likely to score just because both on the ground and through the air he has those opportunities.
Yep.
Just want to circle back on this, Ryan. We asked him earlier, the chance to flex likely in non-PPR. Who is his tight end? He's starting McBride. Likely led all tight ends in targets last week. So literally no tight end had more targets, but McBride was second. So, and I would say that's McBride's 9 targets is more repeatable than Likely's 12 targets that he had last week. So yeah, I'm all for that. Fortunately, means maybe leave Likely on the bench this week. Oh, Courtney Burrows is here. Hey, Courtney.
Hey, Courtney.
We'll see if she has any questions for us. We'll get to those in a second. But we got Roger Abelos asking in full PPR, Bowers or Ingram?
Ooh.
I mean, Bowers was 3rd in tight end targets. Literally, there were only 3 tight ends to get more than 5 targets. And, McBride that's not so surprising. But for Bowers and likely to be the other 2, that was unexpected. Is that repeatable? I mean, I've got Ingram as tight end 5 this week because it seemed like
I got him at 6.
So I mean, I still have Ingram higher than Bowers, but
yeah,
Bowers was the guy that got the targets last week. So I think Ingram only had 4, and I believe Bowers had 8. So literally doubling him up in targets. I'm not quite ready to move Bowers ahead of the other guys. The Woo again, I view as the top 8. Who are the top 8 tight ends in my rankings, preseason, for the draft rankings. I'm not willing to move any of those guys out of the top 8 after just 1 week. So that's because I viewed Ingram in that safe target share type of mold. I think what we saw last week is more outlier than reality, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I've got Ingram still ranked higher. How do you feel?
We did talk last week about the way to beat the Browns is through the tight ends situation. They do have a great secondary, great cornerbacks. So I think I would go Ingram.
And we saw last year Lawrence is willing to target Ingram as his number 1 target if he needs to, if the matchups are right. So Topher, what are you thinking?
I think that the Ravens are so strong in the linebacker room that playing Bowers could be really, really tough, especially as a rookie in his second game. Even though he's a wonderful talent, I still think that could pose an issue. And I am totally. Oh, and the Browns, Jaguars versus the Browns. I think that Evan Ingram could be more viable in that game than Bowers versus the Ravens. That's where I'm going with it.
Yeah, already get some good defensive talk.
Hold on. Ari Myrov just tweeted, Evan Ingram suffered a hamstring injury in pregame warmups, has been ruled out for today's game. Literally just got that tweet right there. So
Brock Bowers it is.
Roger, we made Ari Myrov just made that decision for you.
Wow. Okay then.
Yeah.
Well, so now who would start at tight end for the Jags? I guess that doesn't matter. We're probably not playing them anyway.
Right.
All right. Well, there you go. All right. Brock Bowers it is. That's wow. Crazy news.
Yes. So we got a lot of questions.
It's funny. This has happened to Ingram before. And I remember there's a game with the Giants that's happened, but we didn't get the news an hour. We got it basically at 1:00 after lineups locked. So that was the T. Higgins thing from a couple years ago where that just kept happening, where he was active but then didn't play at all. At least now we've got the update. So thank you, Topher.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're definitely now the most irreplaceable piece of this podcast just for that news right there.
Yes.
Locked in.
Oh, and AJ Brown has been ruled out for tomorrow night's game. Just got that tweet as well.
Okay.
So, boom.
The late week injuries.
Yeah.
Right then.
We got a lot of questions rolling in. Just I can tell you, we're going to hit all of them, so don't leave.
All right, so Daniel's asking another league. Pick 2 half PPR. Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, Chris Godwin, or Marvin Harrison Jr.
All right, this one's kind of easy for me, man. Chase, he's definitely a start. You can't sit him. Godwin, I think he's going to blow up again. So I'm going to go Godwin and Chase just because Olave, I think he's going against Trayvon Diggs. He only saw, one target last week. I expect that to go up, but Trayvon Diggs is a beast, and I don't want to chance that.
Yeah. I mean, Chase for sure, right, Topher?
Yeah, I think you
sure I got Godwin in the top 15.
You see, I actually have Olave ranked higher than Godwin.
Okay, no, I moved him down to 18.
Where's Godwin?
I'm
probably way too low on Godwin if I can't find him.
Last week the Saints went off and Chris Godwin did nada. Not Godwin. Yes. Chris Olave did nothing. So Chris Olave is so boom or bust for me, even though he is he's a top talent. He's so good. I love his talent. I think the Harrison with 3 R's is a nice touch right there. I make mistakes all the time. It's okay.
Or if you count the R in junior.
Oh, yeah. So 4 R's.
Sorry.
I think that I also think that I think Chase and Godwin are going to be your safest options.
Yeah, I got Olave all the way down at wide receiver 30 just because of that matchup.
You see, I've got him at 13. Is Trayvon Diggs really that good of a cover corner? I know he gets a lot of interceptions, but he feels like who was the old Chiefs receiver corner? I think he's with the Ravens now.
I mean, he's got that aggressive play style, so
but that also means that leads to big plays. And I think Olave last week wasn't needed because everything else worked. I don't think they have the luxury of avoiding Olave in this game because the Cowboys. I think it's pretty obvious to say the Cowboys are a significantly better team than the Panthers. It's not even close. So in a trailing type matchup, I actually like that game script for Olave. Now the thing with Godwin, they're playing the Lions, so that same thing could apply. Where unlike last week, where they beat the Commanders and pretty handedly, they got a really big lead early. Probably not going to be the case against the Lions. So both of them are in the proper game script. But I think the one thing is for sure is I think all of us are saying leave Harrison on the bench until he shows that he's going to earn targets, right?
Yeah, and I know the Lions, their slot receiver is doo-doo, so I see Godwin getting a lot of targets.
Sure, yeah, from the slot. I guess, if he's getting played there. So I do have Olave ranked higher than Godwin, but I'm being overruled by my two. But yeah, we're all saying for sure play Chase. It's no question. I know last week he was being eased into it, but now he's going to have a full week of practice. It's the matchup against the Chiefs. Expect really high-scoring game, unlike the Bengals-Patriots games, which entering the week was one of the lower over-unders anyway. So for that to be a low-scoring game wasn't so surprising. We expect this Chiefs-Bengals game to be an optimal. That's the one thing with Chase, Godwin, and Olave. They're all underdogs in really high over-under games. And as receivers, you love that because you think those teams will need to pass it a ton. So, I guess it makes sense to go with Godwin, like you guys are saying. Probably not going to lower Olave below him, though. I'll stubbornly stick with Olave higher in my rankings. But we'll find out if I'm wrong. So Ryan mentioning he benched Worthy last week, and now he's against James Cook. And yeah, I think the one thing especially in the format of non-PPR, not to just chase Worthy's points. We really are thinking the running backs are the way to go. So Courtney asked us a little bit ago before the AJ Brown news was revealed what to do. So now it kind of has an option though. Now Greg Dortch or Tyler Lockett in Scott Fishbowl. Throw. Now, does Dortch return any kicks? Because that would be the one thing that would, I think, maybe sway that way with the scoring in Scott Fishbowl. But for a dude that got 8 targets, I don't think he was involved in the return game at all. So
Dortch was returned, was in the punt return game.
Okay.
So he was, so he received punt return. He's also listed as a kick returner, but DJ Dallas got all those because DJ Dallas scored last week. So that's mine. I still go Dortch. I go Dortch. I think the secondary with the Patriots is good. I mean, Tyler Lockett was, I don't know. Tyler Lockett did go 6 for 77 last week.
He was their leading receiver,
which is bonkers.
But so was Greg Dortch.
Yeah.
I suppose with the opportunity to return punts, like here's the thing. I'm playing Kevontae Turpin this week in Scott Fishbowl because I saw 36 points on my bench last week, and I won my matchup. I'm the second highest scorer in my league, which is great. But then if I played Turpin, I'd be the highest scoring team in my league. So I'm not making that mistake twice. Turpin's locked in the lineup. Although, to be fair, Courtney, I am also playing Tyler Lockett and Scott Fishbowl. So I'd be in the same boat as you. But, I mean, Topher makes a good point. If Dortch is going to get punt returns, like those points are so huge that it makes it worth it in Scott Fishbowl, especially. Jamie, any thoughts?
I'm going to go Dortch. I think he'll see targets. I know Lockett. Who are they playing this week?
Patriots.
Yeah. The Patriots have a sick secondary, man.
Christian Gonzalez is pretty good, and it's a team that
Christian
will run the
Gonzalez
ball a lot, slow the ball down, like low time of possession for the opponent, as we saw last week. It's funny because, like, I remember it not being that late after we ended this, and I was just thinking, oh man, we're gonna hear it from Zach, aren't we? That we told him not to play Jameson Williams. Totally didn't see the scenario where he led the Lions in targets. I didn't think that was a possibility. So. Congrats for anyone who did and played Jameson Williams.
Zach, that was me.
Me too. I mean, I said play Wan'Dale Robinson over. I think it was.
And I was the one. Wait, what did I say? Williams.
We all said it was either like between Ford and Rondale. And to be fair, Rondale got a lot of targets. He had just as many targets as. In fact, I think he had more targets than Jameson. Jameson had 9. I think Wan'Dale ended up with 10 targets last.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Wan'Dale to be used like he was.
I mean, who else they have? It's him and Neighbors. Like those are their top 2 receivers. So I'm not totally surprised on Wan'Dale.
Yeah, Wan'Dale had 12 targets last week.
That was tied for second in the league. So the process on Wan'Dale was correct. I mean, chase the targets, right? It's just Jameson happened to one of his targets was for a long touchdown, which he could do on any given week.
But this week you definitely play Jameson over Robinson just because
Jameson's questionable. That's the only thing. But again, I do have Williams ranked ahead of Robinson as well. But just know that he's like a wide receiver 39. That's where I put Jameson Williams this week. Just because we don't because he's the type of guy an injury could totally derail a week. Like he needs his speed to get open. Like and if he's not getting open, and he's injured, so they don't feel like giving him a rushing attempt to maybe aggravate the injury. He could be like the thing with Williams is he's going to be super low floor. Much lower floor than Wan'Dale will. Because right now, until Neighbors shows he can, and Harrison, like the same thing we just talked about with Greg Dortch, like until further notice, Wan'Dale is the top target on the Giants. And I suppose we saw that from Williams. I mean, everyone's ranking Amon-Ra as a top 5 receiver, though. So I think everyone's expecting Amon-Ra to, and like Laporta, I think he's the ECR tight end 1 this week. So I don't think this might be the only game this year that Jameson gets more targets than both Amon-Ra and Laporta. Like, I don't see that being a likely scenario.
I said it on another podcast that Williams could possibly outscore St. Brown this week just because what's that rookie's name? Tyke Smith for the Bucs. He's going to be covering Williams. He's not going to be able to keep up with them. It's a second.
Who's covering Amon-Ra?
Good question.
I don't like because I think that the part of the Bucs is they've dealt with some injuries to their secondary.
Yeah, they had 3 of their 4 starting cornerbacks go down with injury over the past week. So I think there's good coverage matchups across the board. Yes.
I'm not ever expecting Jameson to outscore Amon-Ra. Like I won't ever project that. I won't ever rank it that way. It is possible, like you said, Jamie. We clearly saw it last week, so we know it's possible. But like no one's ranking it like that though. Like in
that's
the
not
ECR, Amon-Ra is significantly higher than Jameson because we know this is a dude that is a target monster year over year. Like Jameson finally did it for 1 game, but that's the only game he's done it in. So is that a sign of things to come? Maybe, but it also could just be a 1-game blip. And like this is Jameson's best game of the season. He doesn't even come close to this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Zach,
Sammy
we were
Watkins
wrong.
effect.
I'm sorry that we led you astray with the Jameson, like telling you to bench Jameson Williams. The fact that he's not asking about Jameson Williams tells me he might just now lock him in the lineup and not like he's not going to ask us Jameson Williams questions anymore. He's asking about London, Pickens, or Amandre. I don't know if you were listening earlier, Zach. Probably because these comments are from a little bit ago. But like we're pretty anti-London. Like the whole point I made earlier is I need to see something like I need to see Cousins play better, or I need to see Michael Penix in there because right now the quarterback play isn't that much better than it was with Desmond Ridder. So I think London to me is a bench until he shows it, which means unfortunately, again, I have 0 London, so I don't even have to care. But if it was me, what would happen is he'd go off on my bench for a game, and then I'd finally play him. So like I think this is between Pickens and Ramondre. Do you both agree with that?
Yeah, I got London outside my top 24.
Sure, that's where he's finished his whole career. He's never finished as a wide receiver 20, so it's pretty realistic to like. I've got him at 34, Jamie.
So it is tough. Pickens, he's going to see targets. He's got that long deep ball, but he is going to be covered by Surtain's.
So he did DK. DK last week only had 4 targets. Didn't do very much.
Yeah. So I actually have Stevenson in my top 10 running backs. Projected for more points than Pickens this week.
See, I actually have Aaron Jones ahead of Stevenson, but not by much. At RB 15 for me. But yeah, I'd go Stevenson as well. How about you, Topher?
Yeah, I'm going to go Stevenson as well. It really, Stevenson has that backfield on lock. He had 25 rushes and Gibson had 7. Like there's no split there. Also, Gibson, for being touted as a receiving running back, had no receptions last week, while Ramondre had 3. So even though it was only for 6 yards, opportunity is there. So he touched the ball 28 times last week. I think you run with the highest opportunity, even though it is PPR. And we were talking earlier about when it's standard, you lean more towards a running back in that flex versus when it's PPR, you lean more wide receiver in that flex. I think,
but pass catching running backs are pretty good in PPR, as you just pointed out. Ramondre seems to be that.
But he only had 3. He only had 3 receptions. So I'm not gonna call him a PPR running back when he had 3 receptions for 6 yards.
That's true too. But we've also seen him in the past. Like 2 years ago, he led the Patriots in catches. So we know that he's got that role.
That's very true. So
to your point with Gibson, I was drafting a lot of Gibson in redraft, thinking he might eat into that work. But as you mentioned, 0 targets. So
yeah.
But I will say Gibson was like questionable, like didn't practice very much. So I also thought, is the 0 targets just the nature of that he wasn't like they didn't really want to get him on the field because of the injury. Then he had 7 carries, so it's like, they were okay to do that, so he must not have been that hurt. So
yeah,
I was really hesitant drafting Ramondre this year because I thought Gibson would eat into both the goal line and the receiving work. I mean, he got 7 carries, but I think all the touches inside the 5 were actually New England. Yeah, there was only 1 carry inside the 5. Ramondre got it, and he scored on it. So, like, as of right now, he's the full goal line back, but we'll see in future weeks if that's the case.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, as Jamie pointed out, the big risk with Pickens is like who he's facing. Going to be covered by Patrick Surtain. And that's an easy shadow because there's literally no one else on that team worth covering. So, take him out. Maybe it's 20 rushing attempts for Justin Fields today because no one else is open. Matthew mentioning that he's going to be rolling with Swift, crossing all his fingers and toes.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, good luck with that. And we'll see if our rankings our ranking of Swift 1 spot ahead of McLaughlin for Jamie and I, if that'll be worth it or not. Courtney also reacting to the wowzer news of Evan Ingram being out. And apparently we're the ones breaking. Topher is the one breaking the news. So, man on the scene, Topher.
Absolutely. It's just called having 3 people that I get updates on every single tweet that they do. So.
All right. I got a question here from Nicole Brown asking for Terry McLaurin or Jacoby Myers.
Oh, easy. McLaurin, they face the Giants. I think that just solidifies it. You know that McLaurin is the number 1 target there. I know Jaden Daniels is the quarterback, still figuring things out. but you're also facing the Raiders, who looked disastrous last week, are now facing the Baltimore Ravens defense this week. McLaurin, hands down, he's a way better talent, way easier matchup, easy.
Yeah, I wrote about McLaurin in my wide receiver versus CB matchup article this week as a must start. Going against, what's his name, Deontay Banks. He's not going to be able to lock him down. Banks struggles in coverage. McLaurin's just in a great spot, just to take advantage of that. So I think he's like that, like low end wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3 start. But it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up in the top 12 this week.
So yeah, I mean, I've got McLaurin at wide receiver 27 and Myers at wide receiver 38. So I McLaurin higher, so I'd say him. I guess the one thing earlier Topher mentioned, 3 of the Bucks starting 4 corners, or their top 4 cornerbacks were out last week, and McLaurin still didn't do well in that matchup. But it also seemed like they overcompensated by playing a lot of 2 high safeties, and they were trying to always shade a safety to his side. So he was almost always double covered, and Cliff Kingsbury refuses to move his top receivers around. Oh, you're the alpha receiver for a reason. Go win on that one side the whole game. So, yeah, the fact that the Giants might be more willing to try one-on-one matchups because their starting corners are there, and as Jamie mentioned, in those matchups, that's where McLaurin would be favored. So it seems like he's the guy that in like heavy zone schemes that you're gonna shadow towards him. That'll be the tougher matchups. Will the Giants do that? Not sure. It seems like they didn't against the Vikings last week. It didn't seem like Jefferson was overly covered. Now the problem there is that they were just up by so much that they sat all the starters basically the whole second half. So we didn't necessarily get a monster game from Jefferson either. But yeah, as Topher pointed out, you'd rather McLaurin against this Giants defense than Myers against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Roger asked another question. Full PPR for the flex spot. Devontae Adams, or do you chase Xavier? Or do you chance Xavier Worthy? Is it chase? Because you would be chasing the points. Feel weird asking. So he's aware that this shouldn't make sense. The process to trust the dude that gets targets every year, but the upside of he says Worthy is such a weapon, and we definitely saw that. 4 touches, 2 touchdowns, and the way he scored them, it's like okay, a broken play, deep shot from Mahomes. Those are going to happen. That's going to be something that is sustainable because it's Patrick Mahomes. He can always take advantage of those. And if they are going to give him carries and end arounds, let him use his speed, then in theory, that's also something that could repeat. But yeah, 2 touchdowns on 4 touches seems as good as Worthy is, as talented as he is. That's not going to be sustainable. So yeah, I think it's Adams just because I expect the targets. We know they'll be trailing against the Ravens, so a pass-heavy game script.
Exactly what I was going to say. Pass heavy game script. You run with that. Absolutely.
Jamie, anything to say here?
Adams does have a tough matchup, but you have to go Adams over Worthy. He's going to see more volume.
There's certain receivers that they're so good that even when they play an elite corner, they still win. Like Hopkins was that for years, right? Not to say he would ever have these monster games against Jalen Ramsey, but as good of a corner, right? When Ramsey with the Jags at his best, he still couldn't shut out Hopkins. He would still get catches. He'd still maybe get a touchdown if they were throwing the end zone. So Adams is one of those guys that, he beats press coverage so easily with this footwork that he just gets open instantly. So you can't really press him, because you'll get burned every time. So you play off coverage. That leaves him quick openings to make things work. So he's so tough to cover because there's not really a way to cover him. You just kind of have to hope you slow him down, or that just enough for the pass rush to get there and not let the quarterback get the pass off to him, or that he drops it, because that's really the only way to defend Adams, right? We saw it for years, Topher, how just instant off the line of scrimmage, he's open.
Yeah, it just
that doesn't go away. That's all technique. So even as he gets older, his speed slows down, but he was never a real big deep threat burner. Very much like DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to win with their technique and their ability to read, leverage. I think it's called how the defender's positioned. Okay, do I go inside, outside? They know how to get open using whatever the defender's using. So it's all technique. It's all up here, because we still see Hopkins. I mean, I guess we didn't really see it much last week, but he's also dealing with an injury, so we know he's not 100%. But yeah, talking of Turpin, play him over JSN. If you're talking about Scott Fishbowl scoring, Courtney, then yes. Kevontae Turpin should be wide receiver 1 in rankings. No, I mean, again, he scored 36 points last week. So
Just
it's the type of thing with just and that was because I guess the thing with returners is you need the other team to score touchdowns to make the returner worth it. And even as bad as the Browns struggled, he still got enough punt return, kick return opportunities to make things happen. So the thing with JSN is, 2 targets, and it still was slot receiver, low depth of target, all the problems last year because I think he had like 96 targets, but he, it was like 10, it was like just barely over 10 yards a catch, like very much a ton of underneath stuff. There's not a whole lot of upside. And if he's number 3 target, like if you're the number 1 target in that situation, you can make it worth it. But as the number 3 target on a guy that's catching everything underneath, it's really risky. So and Scott Fishbowl, and JSN's not a returner. He's not getting any return opportunities. So, this isn't Scott Fishbowl. Well, if it's not Scott Fishbowl, yeah.
No. If it only reason to start Turpin is Scott Fishbowl. Otherwise, no.
He shouldn't even be rostered in any other leagues. That don't have return yards. But
I'm with you.
Yeah, no. So I thought. Sorry, Courtney. I assumed because you were asking about Turpin, it'd be Scott Fishbowl. No, I'm just straight PPR. I'm fine going JSN because we, as much as he's number 3 on the Seahawks in targets, that's still probably more targets than Turpin.
Yeah.
All right, Harrison Jones asking Zay Flowers or Terry McLaurin, worried about the Ravens not needing to throw as much against the Raiders. Yeah, but the thing is, the Ravens are also maybe mad that they didn't win that game. So I could see them just like, okay, if we can put 50 on the Raiders just to make us feel good, they might do that. So I know this, and this has come up in years before, my other podcast, the Full Press Fantasy Pod. I definitely remember one week where the Chiefs were the highest scoring team, and they're projected to, their implied total was definitely up there in like almost 40 points. And it was against the Jets. And the thought was, and this was, I think, pre-Sauce Gardner, but the thought was, oh man, they're favored by so much. Do they just bench Mahomes at the end of the third quarter? And it did happen. My whole thing was Mahomes should be the number 1 quarterback. And my co-hosts were kind of pushing back. But he might not play the whole game. He did get benched at the third quarter, but he put up so many touchdowns that he did actually finish as the number 1 quarterback in just 3 quarters. So the whole idea of, now I get it, like for a receiver, that's more isolated. Like he needs to get a target every time. So I'm talking about a quarterback more than a receiver. But the idea is, if we're worried about the Ravens scoring too many points, that gives Flowers a ton of opportunity to score touchdowns on those chances, though. So, here's the thing. Based on consensus all year, Zay Flowers has been one of my guys. I've been drafting him a lot higher in redraft. He's my wide receiver 12 this week because I think the Raiders secondary is really not good. So I think he can easily exploit some matchups. So I'm not as concerned of them not needing to throw as much because I feel like they'll be so efficient when they do throw that it'll give Flowers opportunities to score. For a guy he got way more targets than McLaurin did last week. So, if just chasing the targets alone, I'd favor Flowers. But I'm not so concerned about that, Harrison. So I say Flowers, but we'll leave it to my co-host to see what they think. Topher, do you agree with his sentiment of being worried about Flowers not needing to, or the Ravens not needing to throw as much?
Well, I can definitely see not needing to throw as much, but at the same time, even if it's like a short 3rd and 3, they will target Zay at any point on the field, and he will not go down right away, even though he's built somewhat like a 7th grader still going through puberty because he's that size. He is a monster out there, just making people miss, breaking through tackles. He creates his success. And so even if he only has, 5 or 6 targets, he's still going to create some good success from that. I think you have a reason to be worried about not needing to throw much, but again, I'm agreeing that Ravens will be efficient when they do throw, and Zay will be involved in that.
Okay, so you agree with me saying trust Zay Flowers in spite of the worries.
Yes.
Jamie, how do you feel?
Well, we just talked about McLaurin being a must start, but over Flowers, I don't think you could do that. I think you got to go Flowers. I forgot what cornerback's covering, Jack Jones maybe, but I think Flowers is going to outscore McLaurin just a tiny bit, but I don't think you go wrong either way.
Also, it makes, you're right. I think bounce back week for both because I think both disappointed fantasy wise. But again, I've been on the Zay Flowers train. Like, he should be a top 20 receiver in pre-draft rankings. So like I'm sticking with Flowers. Like because he got a ton of targets. It was just the depth of targets were so short. But that's part of the Chiefs have a really good secondary, really good defensive players.
Yes.
From a cornerback standpoint, they've got Trent McDuffie. He's come on and in his young career has done really well. So that really limited Flowers. The Raiders don't have a Trent McDuffie. They don't have enough. They want to blanket cover Flowers, sure, but the Chiefs didn't even really do that because they were blanket covering Andrews. So they blanket Andrews, put our best corner on Flowers, and like that's how they approach that situation. I don't think the Raiders really have that luxury. They just because if they blanket one, the other one will just burn them because they don't have the guys to make those matchups one-on-one. So they're gonna have to be really smart with how they approach their zone defense, which could leave Flowers opportunities.
And you mentioned McDuffie. To be fair, that Jamar Chase is the only one that can burn that guy. So
I like Zay Flowers. I don't think he's Jamar Chase, but that's we are talking about a different level. But at the same time, clearly we saw it as Flowers not producing. Just some context on Courtney mentioning that that league with Turpin, it is a deep dynasty. So to be fair, I think I've got Turpin rostered in a couple dynasty leagues, but the only redraft spot is Scott Fishbowl, simply because of the returns. So go with JSN there. I think that makes sense. Garbage.
Ali, one of my friends. Yes.
Ali, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks for joining us again, Ali. And Tank Dell or J.K. Dobbins in half PPR.
Huh.
Well, my first thought is half PPR go running back, of course.
Yeah. But I mean, who's to say they're not going to work in Gus Edwards? We talked earlier about Nico having a tough day against Jalen Johnson, leaving Dell open. Ooh, this is
Dobbins
tough.
had success late in the game, right? Like it was one of those things where it seemed like they started with Gus Edwards first, and then Dobbins ended up being more efficient. Do they see that, and now Dobbins is the starter already because they saw, okay, he was clearly the better guy for us? It is the Panthers too. Like that's the thing. Like the Chargers might not need to pass very much. I kind of really like Dobbins this week against the Panthers just because they let Jamal Williams score a touchdown. Like everyone was scoring touchdowns. So
Foster Moreau scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I might even start Foster Moreau this week. But J.K. Dobbins, like if they really just want to get him and Edwards touchdowns and they don't really want to throw it all, I can see both of them having like really big rushing yard games. So I would say Dobbins. I do like Tank Dell, but not this much.
I think Dobbins. Edwards had 11 rushes, and Dobbins had 10. But they're going to ride that hot hand because the difference was Edwards was 11 for 26. Dobbins was 10 for 135. like that's not just like, oh, okay, there's a 10-yard difference. No, that is over 100 yards difference. It would be foolish of them to not continue to ride that hot hands of Dobbins. I could also see Gus Edwards playing the red zone vulture like he was last year because he scored 29,000 touchdowns last year and didn't do a whole lot else. But you pretty much could be like, here's a solid 8 points every week. 6 of those points are coming from at least one touchdown from Edwards. So I think Dobbins is going to get you that yardage.
You seemed a little hesitant, Jamie. Hesitant enough to go with Dell over Dobbins?
Well, I think I don't do half PPR projections, so I only do PPR, and I do have in PPR Dell scoring about two points more than Dobbins, which is close enough that.
And to the point where if it was half PPR, how many of those points are Dell catching passes? That probably makes up the difference. So.
Yeah, so maybe if it's half, I would go Dobbins.
I think they both got good touchdown upside. Because Dobbins is playing the Panthers, and for Dell, he's playing the Bears.
But I like to hate the Bears,
but he's got CJ Stroud. That's where the touchdown upside comes from.
So if you're looking at half PPR points, go check out Joe Bond at the Fantasy Six Pack. Dude only does half PPR, and he's a top 5 ranker consistently the past 3 years.
All right, so Zach asking expectations for Mixon this week, and clearly not a start sit question.
I say top 5, definitely top 5. He won't be number 1 again. He's not going to score all those touchdowns, but
he got 30 carries, right? Like, do we expect him to get 30 carries every game? Tony Pollard did pretty well
no.
against the Bears defense, though, but he was also like still splitting a little bit with Spears, whereas Mixon, especially if Dameon Pierce is questionable. Like, they might make Cam Akers active, but they also chose to not play him at all last week, so they really don't have a ton of faith in Cam Akers. I could see Mixon just getting monster volume again. So yeah, I also have him in my top 5 this week. Now ECR did not have him in the top 5. He was like RB9 this week, so I felt ECR was a little slow. Because I saw, man, the workload he got, the offense he's on. I've got him at RB2 this week, so maybe I'm a little nuts, but
RB2 overall.
Yeah, I've got Barkley at 1, Mixon 2, and then Bijan and Brees right behind him.
Yeah, I got Bijan, Hall, Barkley, Pacheco, then Mixon.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
top 5 for both. So
I don't think he touches the ball 30 times again, but I could be very wrong there. I think everybody was wrong about Mixon coming into the season.
I wasn't high on him.
You had him this high?
Yeah, I had him in the top 10 going into the year.
Nice. He was my RB10. I think he just cracked that.
There you go. He was not mine. I think I had him at 15 or 16 most of the offseason.
Feels like he was even lower than that.
Yeah, me and the host of the cheat sheet, Mike Hicks, we both had him super high.
That's awesome.
No, I was also advocating Kamara ahead of Mixon, and I know that was I didn't end up with a lot of Mixon because I was often like waiting around to get Kamara. So that was also something where I think I've only got Mixon in like one league. So, but that's not going to stop me from apparently ranking him as RB2 this week. So we'll see if I'm totally wrong.
So it looks like we're out of questions. We're at the hour mark. I know I got some lineups I got to go back because that Engram news, that's going to screw me.
Yeah, definitely got to go check your actives and actives, folks. Make sure all your players are in at the very least. So you get your 1 o'clock actives now, the 1 o'clock Eastern. Unfortunately, you don't get the 4 o'clock game until about 3:30 Eastern or so. So you have to wait for those. And then again, Keenan Allen tonight, it seems like he's the big late game questionable. We're not really sure. Because again, a guy who gets 11 targets, you in theory want to play him, but Caleb Williams is his quarterback, maybe not, because the Bears should have moved on from Justin Fields.
So before we sign off, I do have a very interesting 6-pick parlay I want to share.
All right, Jamie.
It's all anytime touchdowns. So this is crazy. I think Derrick Henry gets a touchdown. I think Brian Robinson gets a touchdown. I think Najee gets a touchdown. And then in the same game, I got Josh Jacobs and Taylor getting a touchdown.
Ooh, okay.
And this is going to surprise you, but my last pick of the parlay is Kyren Williams gets a touchdown. Yeah, I know. You know me, I hate Kyren, but I put him in this parlay matchup.
Because your whole thing, Jamie, was, man, if Kyron's going to get 90% of the touches, he should be a top 5 back. Like, he should be like RB2 in drafts, right? And guess what? He got 90% of the touches. So, like, you're adjusting to what actually happened.
Exactly.
So, but listen to this. So I put $10 on this, right? If I win, I get $651.79.
There you go.
So
that's how you do it. I like it.
In the comments, look at this one. He's going to come back with a vengeance if London goes off. So
we messed him up on the Jameson Williams last week.
So here we go. So here's my thing, Zach. If London goes off, then every week you come back, we give you advice, and then you do the opposite.
Well, London could go off, but Ramondre could still outscore him too.
Correct.
Right? So like what screws Zach is if Pickens and Ramondre both score less, because like all 3 could go off, and then you're really happy because you got productive players on your bench and not in your opponent's lineups. That's always fun there. So it's all just about, can Ramondre get enough opportunity to beat him, and if so, it doesn't really matter if London goes off. If Ramondre repeats what he did last week, he's most likely going to outscore London.
Yes,
even if London improves. And he says back with a vengeance. What that will require is for Kirk Cousins to immediately come back with a vengeance and return to who he was before the Achilles tear overnight, or from 1 week to another. I don't really see that happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
If either of you have any questions you wanted to pose before we? Because I don't know if you wanted input on that parlay, Jamie, or if you're just to tell us about it.
No, I just went through the matchups and saw that each one of those players all have great matchups for running backs. So,
Najee against the Broncos, like
Robinson
against the Giants. I mean, I think I know Jones scored a touchdown. Did Ty Chandler also get a touchdown in that game?
Not sure. I almost put Ramondre Stevenson in there, but that made me a little bit nervous with the slow offense.
Low pace of play.
It would have been over $1,000 though if that hit.
Well, good luck to you, Jamie. 6 legs of the parlay. Those on.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to ask or cover, Topher, before we
go? I do have a question. I think I know where I want to go, but Josh Palmer or Wan'Dale Robinson half PPR.
Palmer might be out, or he's going to be limited. I heard he has some kind of an injury.
Yeah.
Nagging, so maybe just go Robinson.
That's where I'm leaning, but it's also Chargers against Carolina, right?
But we did just see Chris Olave not do anything in that same match.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that Josh Palmer is the bona fide one on the team either.
Yeah, McConkey. I was hesitant on McConkey, but it seems like he's showing up.
Yeah.
They also, I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row the Chargers get these like cupcake matchups where they barely have to pass.
Right.
That was they were leading for most of that game against the Raiders, which is why you could allow Dobbins and Edwards to combine for over 20 carries.
Yeah.
But that could again happen against the Panthers. So I think with that risk, because the one thing, the Commanders' secondary is not very good. Like Benjamin Saint-Just, he's a decent corner, but other than him, like they really don't have much at safety. Their first round pick Emmanuel Forbes from a couple years ago, I believe he's out. So like Wan'Dale, and if he continues, like he gets another 12 targets like he did last week, he's probably the better play. I know I've got him ranked higher than Palmer in half PPR. So.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I think we're done.
Yeah, I guess so. Thanks everyone for watching another Sunday morning start sit stream. Thanks for asking a ton of questions. We had a lot of people interacting. Honestly, like as it was, oh man, it's already 12:20. Like now it's already 12:40. Like it's these just fly by. This is my first year on the Sunday mornings with Jamie, and I know Jamie did this last year, but going into last week, I was okay. What if we don't get enough questions? How do we fill time? But yeah, it's the opposite. Like, oh man, like if there aren't more questions, we wouldn't have time to answer them all. No, but if there are more questions, feel free to keep coming, folks. Subscribe to the Going for Two Live YouTube page. We're also on Twitch and Facebook. But there's shows basically every day, night of the week, every day of the week, morning in this case. I'll be back tomorrow night for the Monday night pregame show. Eagles-Falcons matchup. It'll be interesting, especially with no AJ Brown. Jamie's on the fantasy cheat sheet every Tuesday night. And this is great. Topher, is there anything else that you would like to share that you do?
No. I'm just
all right. Sunday mornings for now. We'll see if the role
Sunday mornings for now. I'm taking a slow start into this industry, making sure I don't overdo myself.
I was gonna say you're like the rookies this year in the NFL, like Marvin Harrison, super slow. Malik Neighbors, super slow.
Exactly. By the end of
Williams
the season,
looks like he's a bust already.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison, a great analogy because I'm looking slow. I'm taking it slow right now, but by the end of the season, the fantasy footballers won't have a job because I'll just steal their podcast, that kind of thing,
All right, well, folks, this is Marvin Kurt Jr. That's Jamie Perog, Cleveland guy, Cleveland connoisseur, the Canadian Clevelander. I'm Kyle Senra, the actual Canadian, not Clevelander. Follow Jamie at Jamie Perog. I'm at Senra Says. Topher's at Topher K44.
Yep.
Topher K44. Those are with numbers. We love numbers here at Going for Two, of course. Check us out every Sunday morning here on the Going for Two Live Network. So for Topher, for Jamie, I want to thank everyone who joined us in the chats. Zach, Ali, Courtney, Dan, Harrison, not Marvin Harrison, unfortunately. We did have a Marvin Harrison question. Roger, Nicole, going up the list. Daniel, Ryan, Matthew. I feel like there's several Matts, but I got them all. I covered everyone. Got everything covered. We got all the questions covered. Again, thank you, Topher. Thank you, Jamie. This was fantastic.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, thanks, everyone.